Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo, and I'm happy to be with you this Monday evening. If you want to join us, you can feel free to give us a call. It's 833-482-5337. If you want to join our late-night national town hall conversation, 833-4-VALDEZ. And President Trump was at a speech this weekend, and of course, I'm sure to the chagrin and against the advice of some of his advisors, he decided to say, you know what? I'm going to take a shot at Jack Smith. Of course, Jack Smith, the special counsel that was appointed to investigate him, and he just said things like, he's a nasty guy. He's a nasty guy. I don't think we have the audio of it, but it is pretty funny. He's a very entertaining guy, and he was out there taking shots. And, of course, this, of course, makes the lefties crazy. Right? There's all sorts of commentary going on about Trump and what he's done and who's going to be on the debate stage and will Trump be on the debate stage. And I think he continues to say, you know, let them debate. And this way I could figure out who I'm going to pick to be my running mate. I think it's clever. And honestly, he's very up in the polls and it's early. So I don't think he needs to get into debates yet. I would love to see him on the debate stage, quite frankly, to see, you know, how he differs and handles the crowd. But kind of seen it in the past, and I'm sure he's eventually going to take it. So I guess I'm not going to cry over spilled milk over here, but it would be fun, right? It's always more entertaining when El Trompito, Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, is there on the stage and, you know, adding his 2 cents. On other fronts, there's now some information that's been released. Hunter Biden's longtime business partner visited the Obama White House at least 36 times. Now, I guess you could say, look, when Obama was president, Hunter's dad was vice president. So, you know, wouldn't your kids visit your work? Probably. The issue is, you know, my kids, I would imagine, wouldn't work in the same industry as me. And he's currently in trouble for peddling this influence. So, you know, it's not a good look when you're like, hey, I'm not involved with any of my son's business and business partners and blah, blah, blah. And then one of the business partners comes out, Tony Bobolinsky, and says, no, he's the big guy. He's it. He's the guy. Joe Biden's the one. And then the other business partner, Devin Archer, comes out under public testimony and says, well, you know, there was at least 20 times where Biden, you know, greeted us, blah, blah, blah. So it's clear that Biden is involved in his son's business dealings. And again, you think, well, if you were a famous person, like a president, wouldn't you help out your kid? I would. So then what's the problem? Well, the problem is I wouldn't say that I don't help my kid and I don't know anything about her business, right? I would say, sure, I love my daughter. I help her out as much as I can in her business dealings, in so much as I'm allowed to do legally. I think that would have been the right answer. But, of course, Joe Biden, I love my son. He's the smartest guy. No, I've never been involved. Right? We played that audio last week. And I think this is how he gets himself into trouble. But is it really trouble, or is it just trouble with me and you that are listening? You know, that we're holding him to a higher standard. I think most people are like, I don't care. I just don't care. But here we are. So going back to Jack Smith, he had requested that the indictment and certain documents remain unsealed. But a federal judge delivered a blow to special counsel Jack Smith and the prosecution of former President Donald Trump because Eileen Cannon denied the Justice Department's request to keep the filing sealed. And in the case is that they want to keep it quiet. So, you know, and I agree with this now, because if you're going to go after somebody who was once president, how are you going to go after this person that was once president and say, well, we're going to allege that they've done all these things, but then we're going to keep the indictment sealed? Well, hold on a second. I mean, doesn't anybody deserve their fair chance to defend themselves in court to a charge that's public? other than just saying that I know the charge, but I can't see the actual indictment, what you're alleging these charges are, and how you got to that conclusion? Of course. I mean, everybody should have that right. And in my opinion, this is it looks bad on the government, right? It looks bad on the Department of Justice. It looks bad on Biden, who's in charge of this ultimately, and his attorney general, that they would even try to keep all this stuff from the public, something that's a very big deal. Yet, many of them are arguing they want cameras in the courtroom. They want cameras in the courtroom, but they don't want to tell the public what their real charges are. The charges, but we don't know how we got to that, how he broke these rules, these laws. So again, just found that to be interesting, and it looks like the case is being handled fairly, at least thus far. Let me see. There was some other stuff. The Georgia DA is expected to charge Trump under a new anti-mafia RICO law. So now Trump is going to be charged the way they charged John Gotti. Think of that. Real estate developer becomes president of the United States, getting charged under RICO. For what? I guess January 6th, or asking for more votes, or whatever else they're going to come up with. Meanwhile, Biden has sent 3,000 more troops to the Middle East. Now, this, I think, is interesting, and it's something we should pay attention to, because we didn't have this kind of movement in the previous administration. For many people, this is not a good thing, right? I mean, for many people who work for Northrop Grumman or Raytheon or Boeing or the other big military contractors, it's great news, right? It's great news. But for others, it's like, man, this could be the potential of a serious armed conflict. So sailors and Marines are now sailing in the Red Sea after going through the Suez Canal in this deployment. And the United States Navy's 5th Fleet is also in charge of this. So this is, in my opinion, it's a big deal. I know the United States does have to do what they have to do, being the big guy on the block. And I don't mean the big guy, Joe Biden. I mean the big guy, geopolitically. But we just have to be very cautious. So we'll keep you up to speed on that as this currently develops. And then in some other news that I want to get to, there's a couple of interesting things going on. The actors' strike continues, and I know we don't talk a lot about that because I think most of us are like, who cares what actors' strike? But there's an angle on it that I want to take. And the host of that show, I don't know if you remember the show Cheaters on TV, but Tommy Habeeb, he's going to join us later on in the second hour to talk about the Hollywood strike. And I was a big fan of that show, Cheaters, so I thought it was a good show. And then we're also going to talk about Trump's numbers getting stronger while Biden seems to be not stagnating, but kind of steady. And we're going to get to some political analysis on that later on with Raven Harrison. And how old is too old, right, to serve in Congress? Should we have age limits in addition to term limits? I'm a big term limits guy, but we're going to have that conversation as well. And straight ahead, I want to find out the latest on what's going on right here, just outside in our neck of the woods in New York City. We've got the Roosevelt Hotel, a once beautiful, beautiful hotel that was, a beautiful restaurant right across the street from Lincoln Center. And all of a sudden, it looks like a war zone outside. We're going to find out what's going on with that and get an update from Joe Cardinale, retired NYPD Lieutenant Commander. So don't go anywhere. Keep it locked right here. Lots more to come, plus your phone calls, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back, and plenty to discuss on the front of New York City. And again, so goes the city, so goes America, right? I mean, whether it's Los Angeles, California, not Sacramento, but really like San Francisco, New York City, New Jersey, in many ways, these states get crazy, and then the crazy spreads all across the country. So this is why we have to pay attention to this stuff. Not that I'm trying to do local news. I'm trying to really bring a national crisis that's just affecting New York City like we've never seen it. And trust me, I think this is coming to a neighborhood near you if we don't take care of it. And listen to this headline. It's New York Post. Fascinating. New York City immigrants are ticked off about migrants crammed into the neighborhood, their neighborhood rec center. Very upset. Thousands of migrants recently flooding into the Big Apple are facing a round of pushback from New York City immigrants, right? So when immigrants themselves are having problems with other immigrants, you know that there's a problem. And I want to get to the bottom of it. That's why we've got Joe Cardinale. You see him on Fox News. He's a retired NYPD lieutenant. Joe Cardinale, welcome, sir.
Well, how are you, Rich? Good to be with you again.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Thanks for being with us tonight. And, being on the ground in New York, you know what's going on. We've seen stuff on the television. We hear stuff on the radio. What's been your observation as of late with all this craziness outside the Roosevelt Hotel and overall, like, what's the situation on the ground?
You know, nobody wants to admit it, from the mayor's office or even from 1PP, but it's out of control to a point that how do you get the control back? All right, where the numbers in the police department are down. You have these illegal immigrants coming across, and there's no other term to put to it because that's what the residents of Sunset Park are annoyed about. A lot of them came here and went through the system, and they did it, for a very long time. And now they have their one community center that they love to go to, and they're uprooted from it, from people that are being bussed in, and it's not fair. And the problem is a lot of these individuals are not vetted. We don't know what their criminal background is, and it presents a danger. So the city being in the shape it is right now, understaffed in many areas, especially the police department, we have a bona fide problem here. And if the residents of New York City are feeling it with just what was sent over to this area, imagine what's going on in Texas and the other border states that live this every day by the thousands coming in daily, not over the past few months.
Right. Yeah, listen, I've heard this argument. It's the age-old argument. People are like, oh, you're a bigot, you're a xenophobe, you're wrong. These people deserve a chance. It was America that ruined their standing in the Northern Triangle. But Northern Triangle, I'm watching videos of people and they're interviewing, where are you from? They're saying they're from Senegal. They're saying all these different North African, West African countries. And again, not that it's wrong to emigrate to the U.S. from North Africa, but this is not the argument we were told, right? We were told these people are coming from El Salvador and Honduras, and they're looking for a way out because we destroyed their country. And it's just not the case, Joe Cardinale.
No, it's not the case. And people do not realize what's coming across the border. They don't know the sleeper cells that are sitting in our country right now. Nobody addresses that because they don't want to spread fear or anything. But you know what? It's time to get real. It's time to understand that the residual effect from this is not going to be for a couple of years. It's going to be for decades, right? Because the door was left wide open and everybody just came across. True, everybody wants to come to America because it's a great place. It's the best place in the world, right? But we have borders, just like every other country. Do you actually think this would happen in Russia? Do you actually think this would happen in China? It doesn't happen over there because they secure their borders, but they send everything over to us. And, the session is starting to droop her arms a little bit because this is getting a little ridiculous to the point that it's dangerous.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, just
the criminal
to chime
aspect is incredible.
Oh, yeah, well, I want to get to that. Before we do, I just want to talk about real quick about Eric Adams, right? Because in the beginning, he was saying, no, this is the federal government's fault. And he's kind of changing his tune a little bit, where I feel like it's his own constituents that are turning against him. Like you've got these immigrants you're talking about they're a legal immigrant community, and they're saying, look, we can't have that. Where he's saying, look, don't come. There's no space for you. We can't do it. There's some talk that there's a consideration of reversing the sanctuary city status. Have you heard any about that? Is there any truth to that?
You know, Mayor Adams really should think back to when he said he is open to everything because we are a sanctuary city. And he was boasting about that, saying we are, until the problem actually hit home for him. Then he went down to Texas, and he thought he was going to go down there and say, I'm Eric Adams. I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to tell you what's happening. Until
Right.
he saw what was happening on the border, and he saw, the massive migrants that are coming across the border and what the towns look like and what the border looks like until you see it firsthand. Now he has no place to put them. I mean, it's not only in Sunset Park, it's McCarran Park as well, and Greenpoint, right? And it's coming to a neighborhood near you soon. So any space that they can find, they're going to put them in there. And look at the out-of-pocket expense for New York City. It's bad enough we're driving businesses out of New York because of the crime element, but now you're pushing crime onto these neighborhoods by putting unvetted persons into areas that are communities, community-based. These community centers, I used to go to them. I used to hang out in them. And it's a place for everybody to get together from the neighborhood, play ball, shoot a little pool, hang out, get to know everybody. Now they're just uprooted and tossed out of there, for the benefit of no place to put migrants. And it's ridiculous. It really is. And I think Mayor Adams should take a step back and really look at the problem he created. He created this problem by designating New York a sanctuary city.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note that, again, most of the pushback that he's getting right now are coming from immigrants, people that went through a longer process, a more difficult journey to get to the United States, to get to where they are, a lot easier than just coming across the border and checking in on the CBP One app and just, hey, here you go. We'll see you in 10 years if we ever see you again in court, and just allowing, in many ways, even though they don't admit it, allowing illegal immigration that seems to be unchecked. So we're going to continue that discussion, and I want to get to the criminal element. You were just bringing it up, and I want to spend a little bit of time on it, so I want to do it in the next segment, as well as get your take on just crime in general across the country. It seems to me like crime is not as bad as it was, but maybe that's just my misperception, so I want to get your take on that as well. Plus, I want to invite the callers to chime in and ask you any questions they might have. 833-482-5337 is the phone number. Our guest, former NYPD Lieutenant Commander Joe Cardinale. You see him on the Fox News channel. You've heard him on this program before. He's with us, and he's coming right back with me. 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number. Keep it locked right here. Don't go anywhere. We're coming back with Joe Cardinale.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Immigration continues to be a problem that the country faces. It's running amok at the southern border, and the border towns are no longer the ones taking the brunt of it. They're going all over the place with the assistance of you and your tax dollars, right? Your tax dollars are funding midnight flights all over the place. And one of those places where they're sending them in large quantity, New York City. As if New York City needed more people. They're getting them. And one of the people that's on the ground in New York City is Joe Cardinale. He's a former New York Police Department lieutenant, and he's with us. We're discussing immigration. Joe Cardinale, in addition to the pushback that community leaders and folks that attend this community center, immigrants themselves, that in addition to that pushback, there's also the reality that with all these new people, there's increased crime.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, let's think about the numbers going up because of what's going on with the police department at an all-time low for numbers. The cops can't do the job.
You're saying manpower, right? They're low on
absolutely
on people.
Low on manpower. Absolutely low. The last class should have been a lot larger than it was, and it wasn't because they can't get the recruits anymore, because the cops are stifled in the city. They really, their hands are tied. They're actually handcuffed, and the criminals aren't. So I would love to find out how they're tracking all these immigrants that come in, these migrants. I can't, the illegals, how they're tracking them. How are they tracking them? What means are they holding the commanders of the precincts accountable for the tracking of all the migrants? I don't think so, because I think if the numbers of the ones that came over that are criminals ever came out, it would be a problem, all right? Because they are definitely criminals mixed in with the people that are coming across the border, and nobody's keeping tabs on them in New York City, or at least we're not being told. I mean, I would love to see what Mayor Adams says. He was a former member of the NYPD. How would he track them? How is he keeping the neighborhood safe? And that's why the residents of Sunset Park have a bona fide right to protest. They had about 300 to 400 out there the other day. I guarantee you, if this continues, those numbers are going to go by tenfold.
So when we look at a situation like that, Joe Cardinale, what do you make of the instability? And I say instability because, I remember it was last year maybe, or just even a few months back, when Keishant Sewell, she was nominated by Mayor Adams to be the new police commissioner, and it was pretty across the board. Most people were saying, either I don't know her or what I know about her is really good. And I heard a lot of good things, and I see things. When I'm in the city, in Manhattan in particular, I think that's what you got to look out for, because the outer boroughs are things. There's an ebb and flow, but when you see like Times Square upside down, that's a huge problem for the city, right? And there were huge problems with these guys on bikes just wreaking havoc in Times Square, and she came in, and that seemed to have dissipated somewhat, but now she's quit, because I'm guessing Adams had her hamstrung, so he's got a new commissioner. And is there any improvement? What's the status with that?
Improvement? No. There is no improvement right now, Rich. And I'll tell you, they let a very good police commissioner out the gate, all right? Just like everybody else that's running out the gate right now. She was excellent. She had the respect of the cops. She was so well-spoken. She was well-versed in crime. She was a true credit to the NYPD. But you know what my gut feeling is, and I can't say it. I haven't spoken to the ex-commissioner, but I can tell you this. Nobody wants to be a puppet. Nobody wants to be a puppet in New York City that, when they have their reputation on the line. So behind the scenes, there are people in 1PP that are, creating, all the calls. They have all the say in things. And when you're told as police commissioner that you're going to do something this way, that's time to walk out the door. A police commissioner should have the tools and the same reign that every other police commissioner had to do the job that's necessary in New York City. You may not like some of the jobs that have to be done, but they must be done to keep crime under control. But right now, I think the NYPD is going a very dangerous direction. Recruitment is down, and then you have statements from Mayor Adams over there saying that the NYPD has long been, the top echelon of the NYPD has too long been with old white men. And he made that statement. And you have to cringe when you hear a statement like that, because if I had a hospital and I had to fill that hospital with good doctors, I wouldn't care what the color of the person's skin was. I want credentials. I want somebody that's going to go be in that hospital and is going to save lives. When you have somebody running the largest police department in the world, all right, you don't want to just fill spots for the sake of filling spots to be diversified, all right? You want to fill those spots with qualified people. And I personally feel this is not being done right now. 4 top echelon commanders walked out. They're gone. So with that goes the experience, goes everything else. So what does that tell recruits, that people want to be recruits? Because between the city council bashing the police and taking away their indemnification, and then you have Mayor Adams that goes out there and says he wants to do this, but he doesn't do the job that he knows has to be done. Street crime has to be put back out in the streets. There's no doubt about that. The street crime must be out there, and they have to be allowed to do the job they did in the past to get Times Square back. I was there for those years with Mayor Giuliani and under Commissioner Bratton and under Jack Maples. And this was a great plan, and everybody was better off for it. Every community was better off. All right, he merged the 3 police departments, housing, transit, and NYPD, made it one big police department, and he kept this city safe. A lot of people didn't like the direction he was going because it rubbed them the wrong way. But you know what? New York City was the best city, the safest big city in the world. And now look at us. We have taken 20 steps backwards. Now,
Lieutenant, let me ask you, because I remember, I was there for that too. And again, I was a kid, and I remember seeing it, and it was the biggest thing ever. 42nd Street, right? There was a big play, 42nd Street. It's a big it's a landmark in New York City. And I remember when Giuliani came in, there was a place called The Nugget. And it was like a porno place. It was like a huge one right on the corner. It became, I think, the Regal Cinema. It's a nice movie theater now. There was another place, some abandoned theater or whatever, and that became a huge McDonald's. Then they opened the Disney store, and then Lion King came. And, I mean, they turned 42nd Street into one of what was once dirty and filthy and filled with homeless people, and into one of the nicest streets in Midtown. And I was impressed by this. I was like, wow, that's really cool. But on every corner, there were like 5 police officers with, paddy wagons all over the place, and they did what they had to do. And I know that they did it with, the broken windows theory and using stop and frisk and a lot of other tools. Why isn't that happening today?
Why? Because New York City, the criminal justice system is geared for the criminals right now. You have an ADA like Bragg who refuses to prosecute the criminals, but yet he'll go after a cop in the 2-0 precinct who, for 40 minutes, I believe was in the Apple store, tried to talk this individual out of, being disruptive and, really talk to him for 45 minutes before that individual placed his hands on the officer and started swinging at him. And the officer used the necessary force to effect that arrest. You know who got arrested in that? The police officer. Wow. All right. And they offered him, Rich, listen to this one. This is great. They offered him a disorderly conduct. The police officer, and he says, no, I'll fight this. I was doing my job. But the problem is...
He was doing an off-duty gig? Changed. Is that what it was?
No. He was there in uniform.
Shopping?
He was there. Yeah, he was doing his job. Working. He was over there. Right. And the security guard said, the officer tried to talk him down for 40 minutes. What else did you want him to do? And he was a witness saying he raised his hands to him. They're saying he used unnecessary force. It's ridiculous how this is unreal. So if they're doing this to cops, what about the average citizen? How can you pick and choose as an ADA what crimes you're going to prosecute and what crimes you're not going to prosecute? It's not your job. All right. If they were held civilly liable like everybody else, their game would change. But they're not. They're immune from civil liability, and they take their jobs in a direction that nobody ever thought it would go. So between
they want to take away the immunity from civil liability of a police officer, but they won't give it up themselves, neither the politicians or the prosecutors.
Not that they want to; they already took the immunity away from them.
No, I mean they take it away, but they won't take it away from themselves.
Exactly, and it's gone, and that's why. Cops are saying, wait a minute, why would I stick around another 2 years that if anything like this happens to me, there goes my 20 years, my 18 years I already put in, I'll vest, I'll get out and I'll go down to Florida and I'll be a cop down to Florida, but nobody wants to really talk about that because they think everything is all fine and dandy. Homelessness, way up. Drugs on the street. I mean, you walk out of Penn Station and you walk a couple of blocks and there's somebody shooting up right in front of your kids. I mean,
and it's not just in New York, right? This is going to spread across the country. Lieutenant, hang on 1 second. We're going to take a quick pause. We're going to come back. Folks, we're on with Lieutenant Commander Joe Cardinale. You've seen him on television. He's here on the radio with us. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Right, America, welcome back. I am Rich Valdez, and our guest, Joe Cardinale. And Joe Cardinale, former Lieutenant Commander, NYPD. We have a question from Tommy in Charleston, West Virginia, WCHS. Tommy, welcome. You're on with Rich Valdez and Lieutenant Joe Cardinale. Go for it.
Thank you, gentlemen, for this opportunity. Mr. Cardinale, I go back many years, like 25. It was like 20,000 guys in NYPD. That may have changed when they did this whole consolidation thing, which is beyond me. I'm not familiar with it. But right now, what is the table of organization? What is the shortfall in manpower? And can NYPD continue to do things like juvenile division, which is more than arresting people, crime prevention, which is certainly more than arresting people, traffic investigations of wicked accidents where there's homicides? Can they still maintain those specialty units? And also, what knowledge do you have of the extent of this problem elsewhere in the country? And I'll listen off the air. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy. I appreciate it. Lieutenant, go right ahead.
Excellent question. And I'll tell you right now, the NYPD is stretched so thin right now. They have detectives doing, every time there's a riot, they have to put the uniform on, get out there. And what does that do? It takes away from their caseload. All right. They are stretched so thin that you have 15-hour days, sometimes 12-hour days. I mean, they're really stretched to the max. And he's right. The old units for the juvenile units and all the other units, the specialized units, are now consolidated. And here's the problem, Tom. Here's the problem. We can no longer be a proactive police department. We are only a reactive police department. They could say they're fighting crime every which way they want. We're doing this and we're doing that, and they'll sit back on the few laurels that they do have left, and they'll put those on. They'll promote those. But without proactive policing, without those boots on the ground from the street crime unit and from the stop and frisk, all right, you will not get the city back to the way it was from the times we were speaking about, Rich. Times Square coming with,
Right.
Disney coming to Times Square. You'll never get that back unless you go out there and you start being proactive to the degree that we were back then.
Well, I walked down 42nd Street the other day. I went to Newsmax, and I walked to Port Authority bus terminal after that. And I walked several blocks. And I was amazed that it's starting to look like that again. Like half of the theaters are shut down, and they've just become permanent locations for homeless people. The McDonald's is gone. The Disney store is gone. And it's not looking good. And I'm thinking you're seeing crime up in Times Square. It looks not safe. It doesn't. Eventually, this is going to cost a lot of people a lot of money.
It's costing money right now. You know how many businesses have left New York City?
I can imagine.
Because of the crime element. Not only that, because they just feel that it's not worth it to cross the river, and they're finding safe havens across the river in New Jersey. They're going up to Westchester. They're getting out of the city because not only the numbers just aren't what they used to be as far as tourism. We know that. People are leaving the city, so, the residents are leaving and they're going other places. They're coming out to Nassau and Suffolk County, all right? And they just don't have the people that were there to spend the money. And every big business is starting to look at it. I'm surprised they really haven't lost Wall Street at this point because it's that bad. And they won't say it's that bad. They're saying we're doing, and you know what? Kudos to the cops that are on the NYPD right now. To the men and women out there, I applaud you because you are working under the most adverse conditions imaginable. You have a city council that can't stand you, with the exception of a few, all right, that are on there trying to fight for them every day, all right? They have the immunity taken away from them. You have a mayor that says he wants to do the job and he's not doing it. Then he appoints a new police commission, and the two of them get together and say, let's drive the higher echelon out of here and put somebody else in there. If they make it to the higher echelon, 9 out of 10 times, and there's always that one that squeaks in there, but 9 out of 10 times you came up through the ranks, you did the job. You did what you have to do. And I'm not saying Commissioner Kwan didn't do that, all right? But it's time to let the police commissioners be police commissioners without any input from the mayor. He can make suggestions and everything, and if the police commissioner is doing a horrible job, then you replace that person. But Ketchen Sewell, she was doing a great job, and she walked out, and that was it. And it wasn't anything else other than, I'm glad she left, and she's going on to bigger and better things because her legacy will continue on to something bigger and better.
Right. Folks, Lieutenant Joe Cardinale, retired NYPD commissioner. You can check him out on Fox News. And LT, let everybody know where they can find you, how they could follow you.
Well, I have my website is up and running. It's joecardinale.com, and I am working on a piece right now for exactly what we spoke about this evening within the police department. It's called Color My World Blue. So that'll be coming out within a day. And
Okay.
they can leave questions, whatever they want. But I'm telling you, I'm glad you're addressing these issues, Rich. It's applauds to you right now, really.
No, thank you, brother. I appreciate everything you're doing and for keeping us up to speed on what's going on. Folks, we're going to come right back. Joe Cardinale, thank you for being with us. Your calls and more straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So we're talking about crime. We're talking about homelessness. It's exploded in Oakland, California. They're saying it's the land, not of milk and honey, the land of milk and fentanyl, some activists are saying, according to Fox News. The open-air drug market, the narcotic tourism, rampant theft, and very lax camping regulations have made Oakland unlivable. Sad, very sad. I'm looking at a picture of a park where kids are supposed to play, and right over the fence, next to the swings, so on the street, there's, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4 tents, 5 tents. People are living outside of a park. Imagine taking your kid to the park, and there's just homeless people there. And again, homeless people got to live too, but they don't have to live at the park. And the fact that, and there's garbage strewn about everything, I wouldn't put up with that. I would not put up with it. But Oakland and San Francisco have become the promised land of milk and fentanyl, and people are coming here. That's Scott Seneca. He's the founder of Neighbors Together for Oakland. And he says people who are homeless in Oakland now are typically not from Oakland. They're drug tourists. People are flocking there to a place called Fentanyl Island, a patch of land between 7th Street and Brush Street in West Oakland. Mr. Scott describes this as an open-air drug market that's home to dozens of bummed-out vehicles. They come in here for safety and easy access to their drug of choice and the ability to steal in order to support those habits because there is no rule of law. So it's not just New York City. We're talking about from coast to coast. Large cities are seeing a rise in crime, a rise in drug abuse. We can just look at the fentanyl numbers that they call fentanyl overdose when they're really like fentanyl poisoning. But some people are fentanyl addicts. We had one that called into the show. And it just is remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. And again, I'm looking at the video of this activist, Mr. Smith, that I just mentioned his name here. I'm sorry, Mr. Scott, Seneca Scott. This guy seems like he knows what he's talking about. He's got dreadlocks and a beard, black eye. Seems like he's in touch with the community, but he's seeing it go by the wayside. So again, we need the cops. Can't sit here and hate the blue all day. Back the blue. All right, folks, we're going to come back. Hour number 2 is coming up straight ahead. It's Monday night. We're cruising right back into our regular speed here. Give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. We're coming right back. We're talking about politics.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you. It's Monday night, hour number 2 of the program. And, of course, earlier we mentioned that El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, he's been making his rounds over the weekend, saying a few things about Special Counsel Jack Smith. And, of course, Jack Smith taken an L today where he told the judge, we're going to keep that sealed. And she said, oh, hell no. And that did not remain sealed. And Trump is also saying that the limits on the 2020 election case, they violate the First Amendment. So we'll keep you up to speed on how that stuff going. But the other news on that front, Mike Pence has announced that he's reached the qualification standards to participate in the debate. And that's going to be great, right? It's going to be great to see him participate in the debate. I think the more, the merrier. To me, I think the debates and the qualifications for all that, whatever formula they use, is important, right? You know, they do what they do, but it's great when you have a lot of people in a debate. To me, that it adds a lot of nuance and context, and, you know, you need those ideas and the pushback and the back and forth, all of that stuff. Another thing that some people say you need are not only term limits. I think everybody needs term limits, but some people say you need age limits, right? We've recently seen Dianne Feinstein signing power of attorney over to somebody with, you know, one of her children. And, you know, people thinking, well, if somebody else is in charge of her, like, real life decisions, who's in charge of her political decisions? Because she was elected by the people of California. And you can't just elect somebody from, you know, from a ballot and then say, well, we're going to let somebody else make those decisions, right? That's not how our government works. So with us to make sense of it all is political strategist, excuse me, I know how to speak, I swear I do, and former congressional candidate Raven Harrison. Raven, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Good evening.
You bet. Tongue twister of a day here. I feel like Dianne Feinstein for a second. But let's get into this, because this is a topic of concern, and one it's not new. I know in American history we've had this before. We've had Supreme Court justices that were clearly displaying symptoms of dementia, and because of their lifetime appointment were able to remain. And it's been a bone of contention, just like I would say passing a balanced budget, just like term limits with, you know, elected people in Congress and whatnot. Many people think just like you can only serve as president for 2 years, you should only be a senator or a congressperson for X amount of years. So let's talk about age limits. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's an excellent question, and definitely in the forefront now, given everything we've seen. But I think is more than we need age limit, we need term limits and bureaucracy limits. I think that we have stretched the boundaries of what we're talking about for the checks and balances of our United States government. We limit the executive branch, the president, to 2 terms, and then we allow the judicial branch to serve lifetime appointments. And then we have the upper and lower chambers of the House, the legislative branch, with unchecked ability to be there decades. I mean, Dianne Feinstein has been in office 60-plus years. She's been there since before the Internet, if you let that sink in. And I think we saw Mitch McConnell on the Republican side, you know, freeze up. People are saying freeze up. Some people think he had a stroke. It was really disturbing to watch. So I contextualize it by telling people we don't allow pilots to operate planes after age 65, you know, for concerns. We don't allow people to operate machinery when they're impaired. And we should have the same theory applied to, you know, these bureaucracies for these people who are not, you know, making the requirements in terms of being able to appear competent and cohesive and coherent. So I think that that's a discussion we definitely need to have, but politicians don't ever like to raise.
Now, Raven Harrison, let me ask you, because obviously you're going to say things like that and people are going to be upset by them. And they're going to say, you know, I think that Raven Harrison and those that agree with her are being ageist because this is wrong. We shouldn't treat people differently because they're old. How do you respond?
Well, what you respond is there's a practicality to it. I mean, so it's not ageist. Why do they decide that pilots can't fly after 65? You know, some of them are qualified. You could say some are great at 70, and some may be showing signs at 50. It has nothing to do. It's specific to the particular, you know, person. However, if we're looking at this in terms of the government is supposed to be a checks and balance, then why are we limiting the executive branch to 2 terms and we're allowing the other 2 to operate regardless, you know, of impunity? We're seeing these things in real time. I mean, Joe Biden is tripping over air. Mitch McConnell froze up on live television. Feinstein got confused doing her fundamental job, which is going in to vote on the Senate, and she had to have an intern come help her. This is not how our government is designed to run. It's not an attack on somebody to note that there's a decline that comes, with aging. I think my kids remind me of that all the time. So my kids are not ageist, but they are, astute in noticing when sometimes people are reluctant to relinquish power, even though they're displaying symptoms and signs that are disturbing.
And I think those in the medical world, right, people that work in healthcare, doctors in particular, could make the case very clearly that one's mental acuity and recallability, they diminish with age. So you're not as sharp as you were when you were a young whippersnapper and first ran for office. But on the other side of that same coin, you have the, decades of experience, which is kind of like what they elected Biden for. They're like, hey, we know this guy. He was there. He's been a senator for 47 years. This is a guy that knows Washington. He was vice president. He's the most qualified. But here we are, and we're watching restaurants and businesses close down because business isn't like it was, and the economy is suffering, and things are shrinking while inflation is increasing. So I get it that we should have these things. I don't know that we get there. When or what has to happen for the political will to impose an age limit on an elected office? What do you think we need to achieve in order to get there?
Well, what I would say is instead of saying an age limit, I would rather have a term limit, and I would put the term limit on the bureaucracy, not the person. I think it's better to say, okay, let's limit these offices, these ability to legislate. If the executive branch, these are all supposed to be checking and balancing each other, the executive, judicial, and legislative. But we've got these two things going on the judicial and the legislative with, we all saw RGB and some of the others. We question, where they are at a certain point. And then the legislative, these are the people who are making our laws and, enforcing our laws are unchecked. They've been there for decades, and there's no way to really, grasp it. So I feel like we should be looking at it more like, why don't we limit the bureaucracy? And, when we're appointing these people, these should be more of a civic duty than a lifetime, appointment for people. And I just caution people when we say experience, we get hung up on some of these trigger words in the government. And one of them is experience. And I hear this often, Raven, we need experienced leadership. And I have to remind people the Titanic had experienced leadership too. It's all circumstantial. So you have to be careful when you use these terms as absolute of saying, okay, well, so let's talk about the office more than the person. So we should be electing these people with the terms, because we've allowed these politicians, they never bring up term limits. They'll talk about it in their campaigns, and then when they get there, they decide just their job's just a little bit too cushy, and they don't feel like anybody could do it as good as they could, and they're hesitant to relinquish it, and we see these kind of episodes playing out on the stage.
Outstanding. Raven Harrison's with us. We're coming right back with her. Folks, if you want to join the conversation, we were talking about age limits, but we're going to continue our conversation and talk a little bit about why some things matter for some politicians and they get indicted and in trouble and all sorts of things, while other ones are caught with their hand in the cookie jar and nothing seems to happen. Raven Harrison, stick with us. Folks, we're coming right back. If you want to chat with either of us, 833-482-5337. Again, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And check it out. We're still here with Raven Harrison, but we've got a couple of Dianne Feinstein's constituents on the line, right? We got Patty in Ventura, California, listening on KVTA. Patty, you're on with Raven Harrison and Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Hey, good to talk to you. Rich Valdez with an S. Love it.
Thank you.
And Raven, absolutely, yes, we need term limits for the bureaucracy, but it goes beyond that. I worked in just the lowest level of City Hall where you've got the unions. There are so many people, the swamp, I think is what they really are. The swamp needs term limits too. But unions have control more than they should. And people are just, they don't want to lose their job. They're just CYAing, don't you think? And they will kiss, well, I shouldn't say it on there, whoever is in office just to keep their pension. So there's that other problem. And that is why Trump was not able to drain the swamp, because the swamp is not elected.
Right. It's non-elected
Correct.
bureaucrats.
And there's a lot of, Patty, you are absolutely correct. And just like to say thank you for what you're doing out there. My husband's from California and lived out in Ventura County for a long time. And I'm just telling you, thank you for fighting out there. But you are absolutely right. This level of nepotism, corruption, and, quite frankly, greed is infiltrated many other branches. But we've made this about attacking people instead of, trying to straighten out the offices. And he didn't drain the swamp, but he did make the water low enough that we can see the creatures residing in it.
Yeah, good point. Now, Raven Harrison, again, she's the author of Raven's Mantle, Fighting the Betrayal of America. She ran for Congress, and she's an excellent strategist on these issues. Raven Harrison, we have another caller from Los Angeles on KVTA that has a question for you as well. Mike, go right ahead.
Oh.
Hi there. I'm just wondering what the Constitution says about term limits, especially for judges and things like that, because isn't the check against executive power that exact lifetime appointment so that political wins come and go, but the judges reside?
Yep, good question. Mike, Raven Harrison,
It's an excellent question. Thank you, Mike. It is an excellent question. So it's how we're going to apply that check and balance. You are correct. That is how it was initially designed. In the time that the Founding Fathers put this together, we didn't have people serving 60 and 70-year terms for this. So we didn't see, Ben Franklin seizing up on the floor. And so we have to start looking at these things. There was a huge question when RGB became ill about who was actually running, who was actually doing this. And it turns out it was interns and people who were not elected, people who were not screened and vetted with the experience she had, who were actually making these important landmark decisions. So that is something that we really have to be, because that would completely annihilate the check and balance system. But you're right, we need to follow as closely to the Constitution as possible, but we're going to have to adapt given how this has evolved in our government.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add to that is it's a challenge that we face, but to really get to a place with no term limits, we would need a constitutional amendment, and I don't know that we would get one in the current climate that we have. It's been a long time since we've amended the Constitution, and I think that was a time when America was more united than it is right now. And so, people of color can vote and women can vote, but I don't know that, Congress is going to allow people to come together to limit their ability to stay in office forever. But switching gears.
Well, I do agree with you that I don't think that we're not at the point where we're talking about amending, or changing or altering our Constitution. We can't get it followed as it's written right now. So right now we just need to figure out how to make it work effectively.
Yeah, 100%.
As written.
Now, before we run out of time, I want to make sure we chat a little bit about the legal situation that involving the investigation into Hunter Biden, his recent plea agreement. A couple of years ago, people were saying, well, Hunter Biden's under federal investigation, and the news was saying, no, that's Russian disinformation. That's not true. Hunter Biden's an innocent man. He hasn't done anything wrong. And now he's pleading guilty to tax evasion. He's pleading guilty to, he hasn't pled guilty to the firearm charge because he was able to get off of it because of his drug addiction. But the other charge, the money laundering and the FARA violations, and there's just so many things that are on the table with the president's son, and so many arrows pointing to the president being the recipient of these dollars. How do you think this ultimately plays out? Because there's a lot of people that seem like they don't care, but I think this is an actual big issue.
Well, this is a big issue because we're seeing a two-tier justice system, and people right now have lost sight of that because it's Donald Trump and he has this larger-than-life, kind of persona. But the issue is these are our rights. the rights that are being violated are our rights. And when you look at this by a timeline, so March 17th, Hunter admits the laptop is real. On the 18th, Trump is indicted. On the 8th of June, the FBI got information that there was bribery to Biden. And on the 9th, Trump is indicted. On the 26th of July, Hunter's plea deal falls apart. On the 27th, Trump is indicted. We're seeing a real pattern here, of going on that, something happened. So we've got both sides of the aisle of they're literally trying to hold up both sides of the fence. So what I would say is this is something that has to be pushed back on. The last three people who had their political opponents arrested were, Stalin, Mussolini, and Hitler. You can't arrest and attack political opponents in a free constitutional republic. We are in dangerous water right now, that we can't allow this just because you don't like the person. This is not where we can be for America. This is the hallmark and the cursor to communism.
Do you think if it were the other way around, if Trump were president and Biden were the challenger, do you think that the Department of Justice investigating Joe Biden and arresting him and charging him with crimes like they have to Donald Trump, would it be different if it were the shoe were on the other foot? Would people react differently?
I think they would. I think there's been a lot of hostility toward Donald Trump. But what I also like to remind people is we are seeing it play out. I mean, he's being, one of the counts facing Donald Trump is the possession of these documents. Well, only the president has the authority to declassify any document he wants. So the documents that were found in Biden's possession, he did not have the authority for the ones that were found in his possession. And people said, well, Raven, he turned those in. He did not turn those in. People who were not qualified to view those documents turned them in. So, but they're not, and Hillary Clinton, Obama, Bush, Pence, all admitted to having classified documents in their possession that they were not supposed to have. And none of them have received indictment. And so and if we go to the forward one, the superseding indictment that just came out from Jack Smith, it's free speech.
Right. They're coming after his political speech. Raven Harrison, I want to thank you for being with us. The music means they're kicking both of us out of here for a little bit. Raven Harrison, get her book, Raven's Mantle, Fighting the Betrayal of America. Raven, thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. A pleasure. All right, folks, keep it locked right here. Straight ahead, Rich Valdez, we're coming right back. There is so much more. Don't miss it.
Well, Mr. Valdez, you have one of the greatest shows that radio's ever had.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And earlier, I was informed by a very lovely person, by the way, very good-looking, lovely person, that there has been some divorce in Hollywood. And it's lamentable when people in Hollywood get divorced. I forget who it was, actually. Natalie Portman, that was it. Natalie Portman is getting divorced after 11 years. And I thought, that's like a lifetime in Hollywood years, right? But it's due to infidelity. And, over the years, I'm sure many of you listening from coast to coast have seen the show Cheaters, right? There's a TV show Cheaters, and they come out with the cameras and all that. It's a great show. And the original host of the show is Tommy Habeeb. And he's with us now as our guest to talk to us a little bit about what's going on with the Hollywood writers' strike, and then to give us a little bit on what it was like hosting that cool show, because I would love to host that show. I think that's so cool to show up, and it's almost as cool as the Chris Hansen gig where you're like, are you screen name whatever, is this your handle? I think those confrontation shows are kind of cool. But anyway, I want to get into this conversation on the Hollywood actors' strike with Tommy Habeeb. Tommy Habeeb, welcome, sir.
Wow, what a nice intro! Thank you so much. Typically people go. I would clear a room when they mention cheaters. They're going, "Oh my God, that guy!"
Not that guy.
Oh, Jesus. I would come into restaurants, right? Just trying to have a nice dinner. And you'd see like 20% of the restaurant get up couples and walk out because there was some infidelity going on. I got to tell you, they just start to panic. It was pretty funny. So restaurant managers used to go, Tommy, listen, we'll pay you. We'll send you free food. Just don't come in the restaurant. You're clearing us out of here.
That's funny. Well, tell me a little bit about, I don't want to get into that, but I want to cover this Hollywood actor stuff too, because I don't know a ton about it. And we share a union, right? So the union for me is SAG-AFTRA, and I know that's what's going on here. And I'm not a very active participant in union affairs, but I do know that these people are trying to be protected against AI. And I want to get, you're an industry veteran, so break it down for us. What's going on with this Hollywood actors strike?
It's scary that all of a sudden now I'm the veteran, but it happens in life. We just become that. I started in this business at the age of 19 years old and started working in the industry. So I have been around a long time. When we talk about this particular strike, I'll tell you, we do have huge problems. And so I'm a producer as well, right? But
okay.
I'm also an actor, and I see what happens in our business. As a producer, I'm always watching the bottom line, but as an actor, I also have to protect my cohorts, right? The guys that we are in front of the camera and working. So in this particular case, and we're going to reflect back on 1980 when I first walked the picket lines, but in today's case, really it's mainly about artificial intelligence. Yes, do we need more? We need a raise anyway because we hadn't had one in quite a few years. But where the problem's lying here is in AI. And when you think about it, AI is moving so fast and technology is moving so fast. What we're saying is, listen, you can't make any more films unless you have actors in it. You can't start doing AI. And the scariest thing, I got to tell you, what's happening right now, and they're part of our union are extras, and that's atmosphere people. When you're watching a film or a TV show, the people that are walking around in the background.
Right.
Disney, they're already scanning these people, and they don't even know why they're scanning them. But I'll tell you, if I was one of the atmosphere actors, they pay them $185 for the day, and then they've been scanning them. And these people going, I really don't know why they're scanning me. Well, of course you know why. Come on, guys. You can't do that. Now they're taking their entire image, and they're going to use it whenever they want. And so that's what we're not only for extras, but we are walking the picket lines for them as well as with our partners in the Writers Guild. But what's really scary when you see AI, it's moving so fast, and they're already able to take a talking head and just type the words in, and so you're going to see the news converting first because that's the lowest hanging fruit and it's the easiest. But I believe that's what's going to happen. And people are going, well, you can never reproduce an actor in a film. Yes, give it 10, 15 years. You will be. And not only are they going to, get rid of us, but there's going to be, and I see the film guys, the studio side, they're saying, listen, if I could just sit at my desk on a laptop and go, hey, make me a John Waters-style teen flick using a young Leonardo DiCaprio and a young Meryl Streep, right? And they fall in love, type it out, and all of a sudden your laptop is going to create an entire script and then a movie.
Now, Tommy Habeeb, let me just chime in here just to make sure I get this right, because I get the issue, right? They're scanning these extras to potentially use them without compensating them. Is that where the issue is?
That's exactly right. That's
not cool. Obviously you should be paid for your name and your likeness, and I would have a problem with that too. And as you're talking, I'm thinking, just imagine they can get AI of my voice and try to recreate this program. I'm guessing if you listen to my style, my cadence, the jokes that I make, you could try to imitate it. But ultimately, I don't think AI can match the creativity of what I do on the fly every single day. But I can see, right, how, and I guess you could, if you're on the air long enough, like you could probably do it to Limbaugh in many ways, right? Because you develop a style and a pattern, or even like, let's say Bruce Willis, right? Or, he's done so many movies and he's kind of got a way about himself where you could try to recreate that. But again, I can't imagine Bruce Willis being in a movie, let's say that he's not actually in and not getting paid for it. Like, how could they justify stealing your face and your name and your voice?
Well, here's what's going to happen, my friend. They're going to type in there, give me the essence of a Bruce Willis and a Leonardo DiCaprio, and it's going to go out there, and it's going to meld these actors together, and it's going to come up with a different being. And that being, and we're talking about just reading a script here, a knockoff. And so my thought was, why don't we have fractional credits, just like blockchain? And if the guys that write the scripts to AI, right, the guys that are doing the coding, they could simply go and say every time that it goes out there and pulls essence of this person or some words from Ernest Hemingway, that they're getting fractional credits. And so when it comes back with a script or an interpretation of somebody, it gives them credit. So why can't it do that? That would be fair. Now, of course, the money's not going to be what it should be. And I got to tell you, you look at the new Harrison Ford movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark. They made a young Harrison Ford. That's all AI. And all they did was that
was a big deal when they did that. But I'm sure Harrison Ford got paid.
Of course he did. Yeah, and
that's my point. So I get the argument, right? The strike is over. If we're going to write stuff, you can't just use AI. We've got to get paid. And I get it. If it's yours and you own it, you got to get paid. And I think the writers want to make sure that they're getting paid and they're not getting like shut out of the deal because AI is going to be doing the writing. And that part I think is the trickier part because the studios are going to be like, well, look, if you didn't write it, you didn't write it. You're out. But I, like you were saying to the Ernest Hemingway point you made, if you have like a Francis Ford Coppola or, writers that, producers, directors that have a style that they can draw from, in effect, I would say that's, I guess they're going to have to define the line between plagiarism and inspiration. And it's going to be a tough one. Tony Habeeb, stick with us. I want to continue that conversation. Plus, I want the audience to know a little bit more about what it was like when you hosted the show Cheaters. All right, it's one of my favorite shows to watch. Whenever I can catch it, I do. I just absolutely love the. It's an exciting show. I mean, what can I say? Anyway, folks, we're on with Tommy Habeeb. You've seen him on Cheaters. He's an actor. He's a producer, and we're discussing the Hollywood strike and a couple of other Hollywood items straight ahead. If you want to join the conversation, feel free to give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, we're back. Our guest is Tommy Habeeb. And listen to this, Tommy. I used AI software to bust my cheating boyfriend. That's Mia Dio. She's 22 years old from Miami, Florida. She cloned her boyfriend's voice and faked a chat with his side piece. She said her boyfriend, Billy, had been acting suspiciously, so she decided to make his friend, his quote-unquote friend, reveal what had been going on. Mia laid out exactly how she did it in the article that's in the Daily Mail. And maybe we'll get into that a little bit more at the top of the hour. But I figured we're just talking about AI in Hollywood, and we're on with the host of Cheaters, the original host of Cheaters, Tommy Habeeb. So, Tommy, tell me, what do you think about that? That's like a new dimension of cheaters, AI.
I mean, yeah, and I want to hire her. So please give her my information. She's good. Are you kidding me? Oh, my
Yeah, I think
gosh.
it's amazing that she did that, and I guess it's one more way for whomever wants to spy on whomever to do some spying by cloning one's voice and whatnot. But I'm sure it's very exciting for you.
Pretty scary.
It's scary, but I'm sure your time as host of Cheaters was very exciting. What would you say was the most exciting episode you'd ever hosted?
Well, I tell you, so when I started, I met this attorney, and he said, "What do you think if we busted people cheating?" I said, "Give me 2 years, and I'll have that show on the air." So, but this was in 1998, and I got it done. I built, I was the architect of this thing. I built every frame of it, and then hosted it as well. I didn't really know what the heck we were making, and I didn't realize till after I finished the first episode, and I went, "Wow, this is the craziest thing." I don't know if anybody's going to air this thing because it was so radical. And
right.
And so every episode was powerful to me and exciting and so different because we were breaking such new ground. But I guess, when you ask me, what was, do I tell you what was the craziest, or did I tell you what was the most emotional? What is that? So, well, I guess one of the wildest ones I've done. So there was a woman married, confused about her husband, came to me in trouble and said, "Tommy, I need to know the truth." So we sent the detectives out on this guy, and he kept going to this park as a lake, actually, and this girl would get in the car with him, and they would drive out to this lake and hang out for an hour or two, and then they would leave. And so we had him dead to rights, okay? And my detective, goes, "Okay, it's time. Let's do this." So I call her up. I said, "Okay, they're together. They're at the park. Let's go." We go out there, and I'm in the van with her, and I show her the footage. Here's what's going on, and right now, he is in that car 30 feet away. And what do you think? And before we can even get ready, she bolts out the door, like dives into this car. This like is a big old Cadillac. Dives into it. Cameras were flying everywhere. We were all trying to get control of this thing. She dives in. The car is just shaking back and forth. There's just craziness going on. My security couldn't get over there quick enough. All of a sudden, she flies out the open door, and she has a wig in her hand. And she goes, "It's a guy." And the husband gets out. "I didn't know it was a guy." And we're going, "We've been filming you for 2 weeks sleeping with this guy. What do you mean you didn't know it was a guy?" But that was so nuts. And
now, was this a transsexual, or he just didn't know, or he was lying?
No, he was lying. It was full on. He was just in drag, so that was a shocking moment that I wasn't prepared for. Right?
That's quite a shocker.
Your own. It was a shocker. It was for all of us because typically we know what we're going into, and this one caught us completely by surprise. That was a wild one, and then.
Well, before you go on to the next one, let me take a quick pause right there and come right back and remind people of the phone number. Folks, the phone number is 833-482-5337 if you want to chat with Tony Habeeb or with me. And again, up next in the top of the next hour, it's you and me, Open Phone America, any topic, anything, it's all on the table. But we're coming right back with Tony Habeeb. Keep it locked here.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, we're back, and check it out. It's Purple Heart Day, by the way, and we're going to be discussing that at the top of the next hour. So at the beginning of the midnight hour, if you're in New York, if you are in Pacific time, then that's 9 p.m. But we are going to be talking about Purple Heart Day. And, of course, remember that this program has been nominated for a People's Choice Podcast Award for the podcast version of this program. So keep that in mind, because voting for that starts tomorrow. But right now we're on with Tommy Habeeb. I think I called him Tony by accident, and that's my bad. But Tommy Habeeb is with us, host of Cheaters. And Tommy, you were wrapping up on telling us another one of your wildest cheater stories. Go right ahead.
Well, I don't know. Should I bore you guys with that?
Oh, it's not a bore. I could do this for hours, but we have these pesky things called commercials they forced me to do.
Oh, my gosh. No, listen, we've done all kind of crazy episodes and some heartbreak ones. I had a guy who was a security guard at Reunion Arena, the big basketball facility here in Dallas, Texas. And the wife brought the daughter along. And one of the most heart-wrenching moments was, when the daughter confronts, the father. And typically we wouldn't have done it, but she was 16 years old. And the daughter and the mom confront the dad. And, it was heartbreaking. And I will tell you, though, there's been some wild episodes. And believe it or not, I'm actually developing a new show. The network came to me and said, Tommy, we have a slot open in the afternoons, and it's perfect to do a weekly.
Can I be your co-host on this new show?
Come on, come have some fun with me.
I want to do it. I'm looking for a TV gig.
Oh my gosh! Well, it's available. It's available.
All right, we're talking.
We're doing a relationship podcast with iHeart. We're excited about it. I think launches in 2 weeks. So there's some fun stuff going on, but I do want to mention one thing, because Cheaters have been a big part of my life. I gave birth to the show, but I also created a show. I used to host the SPCA telethons with Betty White, and animals have been a huge part of my life. And so 4 or 5 years ago, I created a show called To the Rescue, and we're rescuing dogs all over the world and that are in big trouble. So
what's the website for that, Tommy?
It's called ToTheRescueTV.com.
ToTheRescueTV.com. I want to encourage everybody to check it out, because we're down to about 20 seconds. Let everybody know how they could follow you and everything else that you're doing.
And I would love it if people could come join me on Instagram at Tommy Habeeb, and it's Habeeb. And you can learn a lot more about all the stuff we're doing. Read my blog.
Will do. I don't want to cut you off, but the music's going to kick us out. Tommy Habeeb, thanks for being here, brother. I appreciate it. I'm going to be your first Instagram follower. Don't go anywhere. Thanks again for being here. Open Phone America's coming up next with me, Rich Valdez. Don't move a muscle.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you. It's the Monday night edition of the program. Today is Purple Heart Day, and of course, I want to give a big shout-out to everybody that's ever served in uniform, because overall, like blanket, thank you, but also everybody that's been injured in the line of duty and received a Purple Heart. Purple Heart Day is August 7th. It commemorates the creation of the oldest American military decoration for military merit. Purple Heart honors the men and women who are the heart of the military, and this is the Military Order of the Purple Heart, that designation that they get when they receive this honor. So during the American Revolution, the Revolutionary War, this badge for military merit only was awarded to 6 soldiers. And today, obviously, we've had many, many Purple Heart recipients. So General George Washington created the Badge of Merit back in 1782. And General Washington, before he became President Washington, his intention was to honor the soldiers for any singular meritorious action. And that's a quote from his original declaration of it. And its design included a purple heart, a heart-shaped piece of silk bound with a thin edge of silver. Across the face, the word merit was embroidered in the silver, and while the badge symbolized the courage and devotion of an American patriot, no one actually knows who designed the award. So it wasn't until Washington's 200th birthday that the Purple Heart persisted as a Revolutionary War footnote. So things went on, and General Douglas MacArthur, when he ran the U.S. War Department, created the Order of the Purple Heart. So today, the medal bears a bust of George Washington and his coat of arms, and that's the history behind that. So a big shout out to everybody that has one. 1.9 million service members have earned Purple Hearts. My brother Bobby, Robert Valdez, he was a Marine. He doesn't have a Purple Heart, but he was a Marine, and I have nothing but the highest respect for those in the military. And I'd be in the military myself if it wasn't for I didn't make it. I tried twice, and I didn't make it. So, kudos to everybody that's out there fighting for what's right. And speaking of fighting for what's right, this girl here, right, who used the Mia Dio is her name. She's 22 years old. I have a daughter that's 22 years old, so kudos to this girl. Very smart. She claims she busted her boyfriend cheating on cheating on her, but by using AI. And it's this story's going all over TikTok apparently, and this is how she did the hack. And she's teaching people how she did her hack, because people are now concerned. People that are concerned that their partner might be unfaithful, or people that are cheaters that are like, oh snap, they might catch me. So either way, they're in bad trouble, as my father would say. Se chavaron. Anyway, she's now dubbed a genius by many on TikTok that are sharing her method in the now viral video, revealing how she used AI to clone her boyfriend's voice after growing suspicious about how he'd been acting. Man, there are so many ways out there for those who don't do what they do, or don't do the right thing. Watch out, right? Your girlfriend might be cloning you and using your voice, or who knows, whatever other methods are available. I also want to just remind everybody that tomorrow, the 8th, Tuesday the 8th, is the first day of voting. Now, if you're thinking, hold on, you've been talking about this People's Choice thing, the People's Choice Podcast Awards, for, I don't know, a week or so. That's true. And I was telling you to register your email. And if you have others in your household that want to participate in this election, great. Love that. But you register your email so that you can vote via email. And that voting starts tomorrow. The website for that is podcastawards.com, podcastawards.com. This program, which, again, is live right now, but will repeat on digital platforms all across everything in about an hour from now. And it's available as a podcast. And the podcast version of Rich Valdez, America at Night, has been nominated for a People's Choice Podcast Award. And it's because of our coverage of government and organizations. So if you want to vote for the show, make sure that you have registered your email, and they send you an email to verify that it's really you. And then tomorrow, voting is open. Podcastawards.com is the website. The show is my show. If they ask you for my name, it's Rich Valdez with an S. You know that. And, of course, the category we've been nominated for is government and organization. So counting on you, everybody listening right now. If you can hear me right now, I'm literally counting on you to make a great showing, because this isn't about me, and it's really not about the show per se. It's about you guys. I want you all to have a say in this. That's why they call it the People's Choice, right? It's not my choice. If I was choosing, I'd pick me. But it's your choice. It's the people's choice, and when the people speak, they'll know. So I'm hoping that you guys will let your voices be heard. If you really enjoy the program, that you'll go ahead and vote for it at podcastawards.com. And I also want to invite you to call. Of course, this is Open Phone America, and we're talking about everything under the sun, allowing you to be heard on our late night National Town Hall Forum. We're going to get to your calls momentarily. I want to give you the number for that. It's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Of course, if you want to drop a comment like Joe Exotic, the Tiger King, dropped on my social media the other day, you're welcome to do that as well. And that's at Rich Valdez with an S on all of the social media platforms. So don't move a muscle. You keep it locked right here. We're coming right back to your calls and a lot more. Plus, I want to circle back with this cheating story. And I've got a couple of other funny stories up my sleeve that I want to get to, including one from a doctor in Maryland who was a big proponent of COVID testing. And it turns out this guy has just been charged for 15 million fraudulent testing claims. Isn't that crazy? So we're going to talk about that as well, and a couple of other really crazy stories that are out there. So looking forward to chatting with you and sharing these stories with you. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And so just to give you a little bit of this, I'm going to get to that doctor who got in trouble in a moment. But I want you to hear this. This is a crazy story. And again, we're taking your calls on everything we've talked about tonight, the cheaters and the Purple Hearts and all of that. And I'm going to get to your calls momentarily. 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337. But I want to touch base on this topic. This is interesting. Listen to this. Shocking, crazy, like all sorts of adjectives. A doctor in New York City, Queens, charged with drugging and raping numerous women while he was filming the assaults. Wow. Well, here we go. Ji Allen Cheng, 33 years old, a gastroenterologist at New York Presbyterian in Queens, was initially arrested in December after his girlfriend claimed the doctor knocked her unconscious at his Astoria apartment using a surgical mask stuffed with cotton balls soaked in an unknown liquid. Wow, it's like out of a movie. She said she didn't remember anything when she woke up, but found a video of Cheng sexually assaulting her, along with footage of him attacking several other women. In addition to this discovery, prosecutors said numerous drugs, including fentanyl, ketamine, LSD, and surgical anesthesia, were found in Cheng's home. Now, I can understand the surgical anesthesia. The guy does gastroenterology, but typically they, knock you out to scope you. But wow, the other stuff is crazy. Cheng was arraigned and indicted on 3 counts of rape, 10 counts of predatory sexual assault, 7 counts of sexual abuse, and 4 counts of assault, prosecutors announced earlier today. Look at this innocent-looking guy. He looks like a little kid. At least one of the women alleged she was sexually assaulted by Cheng at the hospital in Queens as a patient when she was only 19 years old. Prosecutors said he gave her a rectal exam that was not necessary for her gallbladder treatment. Wow. Then injected her with a liquid and raped her. That's according to the New York Times. The charges are focused on Cheng's assaults of 6 women. But prosecutors said there are likely to be more victims. Known victims range in age from 19 to 47 years old. Man. Now, the videos found in Cheng's possession suggest that he assaulted at least 5 other women in recent years across New York, Las Vegas, San Francisco, and Thailand. Now, I know Thailand's one of those kind of crazy places where lots of this weird stuff happens. They have a reputation for that. But anyway, here's a quote from the attorney for the 19-year-old victim. He says, for someone to rise to this level where you're drugging and raping a person, that doesn't happen overnight. That's Nicholas Likas. He's the attorney for the 19-year-old victim. He told that to NBC New York. And he says you have essentially a predator in a white coat. Now, there was another story. I think it was a dentist that was doing this same thing, knocking him out and taking advantage. And after he was imprisoned or whatever and charged, there was civil lawsuits that went on for years. Like the attorneys had all over radio. I used to hear them, especially in New York. You know, if you've ever seen Dr. So-and-so and so-and-so, you may have been the victim of sexual assault. Call us, whatever, lawyer.com. And it was really a thing and a scary thing. And you would think that that's very few and far between. Here we are again with a really innocent, young-looking doctor. Now, the woman said that she was assaulted by Cheng back in June of 21, more than a year before his arrest, and that the hospital investigated her complaints, but the complaints went nowhere. How about that? So you're like, hey, I think the doctor touched me. That's the problem. If you think somebody's touching you, sexual assault, rape, whatever, go to the cops. Right? Go to the cops. Go to the hospital, too, but you got to go to the cops. You can't just go to the hospital because they're like, what if they think this guy's making them a lot of money and they don't care? They want to look the other way. That's not something that can stand. We can't tolerate that. I mean, this guy's got to watch his back now. He messed up with a bunch of girls. We don't know who their dads are, their brothers are. Dads and brothers take these things seriously. They're not going to let people just push their kids around. Not good. Not good at all. What the hospital said was, as caregivers, we're responsible for the safety and well-being of our patients. It's a sacred trust. That's all they said. The crimes committed by this individual are heinous. Oh, it went on, I'm sorry. And despicable, and a fundamental betrayal to our mission and our patients' trust. We are appalled and deeply saddened by what these victims and their families have endured. Yeah, no kidding. Unbelievable. A representative told the hospital that the safety measures that they have are stringent and that it was working to identify any weaknesses that they had. The hospital has not commented on Cheng specifically, and that's where we're at with that. But, I mean, this makes me think, man, this has got to be a horrible situation for people to go through. I mean, I can't imagine going through this, or somebody, a loved one, or just anybody, honestly, going through something like this. Absolutely horrible. And I wanted to share that with you. I also want to get into another story. There's another really interesting take on things. And it was another doctor story. We'll make it the doctor segment here. Your doctor is what they're alleging here, that your doctor might be reading your blood pressure all wrong. And there's a reason it's dangerous. Now, they're saying that the classic one-size-fits-all blood pressure cuff that's used by most doctors' offices could be hazardous to your health. It's funny. The other day I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he has high blood pressure, and he had like an episode where it was really high, and it took a long time to lower it. And he said, it got so bad, he was lightheaded, and he had passed out. And he was in the ambulance, and he said, the only thing I remember, other than the really bumpy road, was that this thing felt like it was going to destroy my arm because it was so tight. And I was like, man, yeah, I know that's always annoying. I feel like that too. Well, there's a new study published today in the JAMA Journal of Internal Medicine, and they found that standard or regular blood pressure cuffs are delivering strikingly inaccurate readings for patients who actually require a different size, particularly guys like me who might need a larger cuff. Accurate readings are incredibly important to diagnosing conditions like high blood pressure, what they call hypertension, and that's literally the leading cause of heart disease. So the clinical guidelines recommend using the cuff that best fits the person's arm. However, experts found that medical professionals most often use mid-size cuffs. These are typically the only size provided for at-home blood pressure kits. Now, Johns Hopkins University, the researchers at the School of Medicine, they analyzed blood pressure readings from 195 adults with a pretty wide range of arm circumferences. And after walking around for 2 minutes, the participants had their blood pressure measured using 3 different cuff sizes in random order: the regular standard size, a fitted size, and a third size that was either too large or too small intentionally for the purpose of the study. And they found that those requiring a small cuff reported consistently low blood pressure readings. In contrast, Those requiring a large or extra large cuff reported high blood pressure measurements with major errors. The effects did not vary depending on a person's existing blood pressure or obesity status, and that was what the study concluded. So the author of the study, Dr. Tammy Brady, she was on TV, and she said that she was shocked at how big of a difference there was and didn't expect the difference to be at the magnitude that they found it at. In the end, the experts found that traditional size, or the one-size-fits-all approach, is oftentimes going to get you the wrong reading, and it's going to be lower, resulting in the wrong diagnosis. And that means people might have high blood pressure and not even realize they have it. That sucks. So the team advised that both patients and providers should be better educated about the importance of using the right blood pressure cuff, and warned against using any type of public blood pressure kiosk, like the one that you go at your favorite pharmacy and put your arm in there, because it's not going to give you the right result. Isn't that crazy? I didn't see that coming. And I have one of these little small home ones that I check from time to time, and I'm going to have to get a different one, I guess, to make sure I'm doing it right. Compare and contrast. Anyway, I just thought you should know that. A little bit of a PSA here on America at Night. And anyway, we're coming right back to you guys. Again, the phone number, if you want to tell me about your worst cheating story. This is really what I wanted to hear about. Was if anybody has ever been cheated on. If you've been cheated on, I want you to call, because I want to hear the story and to see, how you found out, right? There was this girl in Miami that used AI to find out. I want to know how you found out. So give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. We're discussing that and everything else that we've discussed tonight. And, of course, I'm going to check the comments on all of the social media in a little bit. That's at Rich Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez. So make sure you drop a comment and let me know what's going on. Happy to hear from you and interact that way as well. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back. It's America at Night with me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere. We've got another half hour to go. So, my words, we're just getting started.
Across America to the liberty-loving Latino, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, so I want to get to the phones because I have neglected you a little bit talking about all these doctor stories. But we have a bunch of people holding on, from Michigan to Missouri to Pennsylvania, and still there's calls coming in. So we'll get to those momentarily. But let's start off in Pennsylvania. Let's go to Sue. She's calling us from Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Sue, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Hey. Yeah, so what I was going to say is, this home blood pressure thing, I have a cuff at home too. And when I was first starting to do that, I read all about how you're supposed to do it. Now, invariably, when you're at the doctor's office and the nurse is taking your blood pressure, they are chatting with you the whole time. And according to my reading, talking while having your blood pressure taken can elevate it as much as 10 points.
Wow.
It also says dangling your feet from an exam table can also throw off the reading. Well, you're usually sitting on the table and your feet are hanging there. And according to what I'm reading here, having a full bladder can add 10 or 15 points to your reading. And having your arm dangling instead of being supported can also affect the reading. So you would think that the nurses would know not to talk to you during when they're taking your blood pressure, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Listen, telling me not to talk at any time is always a tall order. I try not to talk. I find when I go to do that at the doctor, they usually put a thermometer in my mouth right at the same time, and I think they figure it out. If we don't shut this guy up, he's going to talk right through the blood pressure reading. So maybe they figured it out, but you're right. You shouldn't do anything. And your arm has to be at a certain elevation to get the thing right as well, as from what I understand. So very good point, Sue. I appreciate that. Big shout out to everybody on WXDE Schwenksville, Pennsylvania. Always a pleasure to hear from you, Sue. Let's continue. I see we have Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Is this the real Lori Lightfoot on the line? Calling from Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri. Beetlejuice, go right ahead.
You were talking about earlier about how to find out who's cheating on you.
Yes. What's on your mind, Beetlejuice?
Correct.
All right, we're going to put you on hold. Not quick enough for me. It's live radio. Every second counts. Let us continue. Let's go to Rose. She's calling from Albany, New York, WGDJ. Go right ahead, Rose.
Hi, Rich.
Hey, how are you, Rose?
I'm going to tell you my little story. I'm fine, thanks. I'm going to share with you my story of cheating. It was Valentine's Day, and I really was hoping for something special to happen. I was a young mom, and my husband, he was in school, college actually, and I was just praying to God, please let something happen today. Let show me that he loves me or doesn't love me. I needed to know. And I had gotten the area newspaper, and on the front page was a picture of him, but I knew it was him. They didn't show his face. They just showed his coat and his bracelet. I could see his bracelet, and he had a big 12 dozen roses that I never got that day. And I thought, well, I said a prayer to God, and he gave me my answer, and it was actually, it made me feel centered, like I had my answer without.
Yeah, listen, there's security in the truth, right?
Yes, very much.
Wow, it's a tough story. I'm sorry, Rose. You seem like a really darling person, but it's great. I mean, he put himself out there. I mean, he walked right into that one, taking pictures in front of the press with a dozen roses when you're a married man and you're not giving them to your wife. And hopefully they were for his mom, but it looks like they probably weren't.
No, I don't think so.
Well, thank you, Rose. I appreciate it. That's a heck of a way to get caught. It's like the original version of that AI story. You caught him out there using technology yet again. Thank you, Rose. Big shout out to everybody in Albany, New York, WGDJ. And let's keep it moving here. Where are we going now? We're going to go to... Oh, we're going to keep it in New York, right? Susan, where are you calling from, Susan?
Hi, I'm on the road. I'm driving from Tampa back home to New York, and I'm kind of in Delaware right now.
Got it. Yeah, I saw the 516 number, and I thought, that's a New Yorker like me. And so you're in Delaware listening on WDEL. Big shout out to everybody in Delaware. Susan, what's your cheating story?
Oh, well, okay. So I'm home in 1980 with, living with my husband above my parents. And I get a phone call on a Thursday afternoon. And the guy on the other line introduces himself. He says, hi, my name is David. And I need you to give your husband a message for me. And I said, okay. And he said, I want you to tell your husband to keep his, and I can say F in, right?
Yeah.
What he said, I'm not going to say the word, right?
Yeah, don't get us in trouble.
Okay, so he said, tell your husband to keep his effing paws off my effing wife, or I'm going to effing kill him.
He was another New Yorker.
I told David, I said, I'll definitely give my husband that message for you. Thank you. So,
wow, how'd that go?
Long story, really short. He had told this man's wife that they were soulmates and he was going to take care of her forever. And they were about 5 months later, they were about to move in together. And my husband comes to me and says, Susan, I got a problem. And I'm like, William, what's your problem? And he says, I don't want to move in with her. You got to help me get rid of her.
Well, hold on a second. Did he break up with you?
No, I didn't want to get divorced, so I just kind of, I let them do their thing. They talked on the phone and stuff, and I was working on my master's degree, so I was busy. I figured it would peter out. I figured if I was mean to him or to her, that he would definitely divorce me. They would push them together. So right. I was just, going with the flow. And he comes to me about 5 months later and says, you got to help me get rid of her. And I'm like, okay. And then
now,
he says,
does this mean like in a barrel?
What's that?
Like putting her in a barrel?
No. He just didn't want to move in with her, and he had promised her that they were soulmates and they were going to live together forever. So he was too much of a mama's boy to tell her the truth.
Wow. So how did things work out with you and William today?
Well, he divorced me too. He had me, more or less get rid of her. I said, look, there's $2,000 in the china closet. Take it and give it to her because her sister's looking for an apartment too. I knew everything. I said her sister's looking for apartment. Give her the $2,000. She'll move. Tell her to move in with her sister, and she'll be fine. So I helped him get rid of her, but he still didn't stay with me. He divorced me, and about 5 years later, I run into her in the supermarket. And I don't care. And I said, did he ever call you after that? And she said, nope.
Wow, that's a story, man. I think you should write a book on that one. That's a really crazy story. Susan, thanks for your candor. I appreciate it. I've never heard a story like that, and I'm grateful that you called in. I hope you'll call in again anytime on any topic. Susan, in Delaware, but from New York, good speaking with you. We're going to continue with your calls and more straight ahead. We've got calls from Indiana, New York, and Michigan coming up, plus a couple of more that are coming in. So don't move a muscle. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. We're taking your calls, 833-4VALDEZ. Let's go to, Carol. Carol is in Bedford, Indiana, WBIW. Carol, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Thank you. I have a cheater story, plus if there's time, a notation about blood pressure. But I was quite young. I was about 20, and my first husband, I found out later he ended up cheating on me all the time, so I divorced him. But the first time I caught him, I had a best friend. I'm about 5'3". She was about probably near 6 feet.
Wow.
We were real close. And now that means something you'll hear in a minute.
Hold on a second. You knew this woman?
Yeah, she was my best friend at the time, supposedly.
Oh.
And we were all real close. We ran around together. As a matter of fact, she stayed with me for a while when she got kicked out of her house. Well, apparently, me and him were fighting a lot, and I knew something was going on, and I moved out of the house. I moved in with my mom. That same day, I got a phone call. Now, the phone that I had in the country back then, it had a clicking noise. She called me in town. I knew it was my phone. I come home. She's in my robe, in my trailer. I was pissed, of course, but you got to realize she's bigger than me. She's bigger than me, right? And she's
bigger than me, too.
She didn't find me threatening. So he loved his mommy. So I went over that we lived on land that she had that we bought from her. So I went and told her that so-and-so wouldn't leave the house. I know that doesn't sound very admirable, but I knew it'd work. And she made her leave. And then
his mom came and threw her out.
To tell his mom it wasn't true.
Wow. That is insane. Wow. And how did you make out after that? Do you guys still talk, or is he like public enemy number one?
No, we ended up talking later, but he died a few years ago. But he cheated on me pretty much the whole marriage. So
wow.
Anyway,
I can't imagine that. You sound like a sweetheart, Carol.
Years. Well, thank you. Because I do have time for blood pressure.
Yeah, make it quick. Let's hear about the blood pressure.
Okay. I was a nurse, and whenever I worked at group homes and stuff, I always had 3 sizes blood pressure. I had small, child size for small arms. I'd have the company order them for me. I had the regular, and I'd have the large for people with large arms, and it does make a difference. If you have too tight of something, it makes the blood pressure appear up, and if it's too small, it can make your if it's too tight, it can make it appear up. But if it's too big, if it's not sitting the arm right, it can make you look like you've got low blood pressure when you don't.
Wow, and that's a big deal because obviously you need to know what your blood pressure actually is. Thank you, Carol. I appreciate it. Wow, what a story. Bedford, Indiana, WBIW. Carol, thank you so much. Let us continue. We're going to Fargo, North Dakota, WDAY. Let's check in with Avis. Avis, you're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Hi, Rick. Thanks for taking my call. I just had a cheater story I wanted to share with you.
Sure.
So, it was about 10 years. I'd been married about 10 years, had 3 children, found out my husband was cheating on me, and one day actually...
Hold on. How did you find out?
Well, my children and I had been grocery shopping. We came out of the store, and here he goes driving by with her in the car. But I had heard rumors before that he was. But anyhow, I'm a surgical nurse, and it was about 2 weeks after this encounter when I had found him in the car with her. I was on call for surgery one night, and we had an emergency case coming in, and here it turned out to be his girlfriend.
Oh, my
he'd
goodness.
Been cheating with. So I was in the recovery room that night taking care of patients when she came out of surgery and was into recovery, and she's laying on the table, and she's kind of half waking up, but she looked at
Did she know
me.
that he was married, or was he lying saying he was single?
Yeah, no, he knew. She knew. Yeah, she knew me, too. But anyhow, as she was waking up from her surgery, laying on the table there, she was still very groggy, but she looked at me and she said, am I in hell? And I said, yeah, and I'm the devil.
Not yet. That is
Yeah,
funny.
when she said, am I in hell? I said, yeah, and I'm the devil. But
Welcome.
I was very professional.
That's probably one of the crazier ones I've heard tonight. Wow. Great story, Avis. Wow. Thank you so much for the story. That's incredible. Big shout out to Avis in Fargo, North Dakota, WDAY. We're coming right back to the rest of your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, we continue at Open Phone America, where you, the Americans, call into the program and sound off on all of the issues you'd like to sound off on. Let's go to Dan, Washington, Pennsylvania, KDKA, America's oldest radio station. Dan, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
It may be the oldest radio station, but I'm not your oldest listener. So that's I wanted to make
Are you
sure?
sure?
I'm sure. The possibility of do you have the wrist type of cuff on your?
I do.
The one you have at home, or
Yeah.
the wrist? Okay. Well, I found those to be. I had 2 of them given to me by caseworkers. I bought my own. It's called a Welby, and it goes around your elbow, and it has a voice and says, we're doing this now, and be still. And I always lay down. But, when you go to the doctor's office, sometimes I'll take it with your coat on if it's wintertime, or, like they're too troubled to have you take your coat off. But you should be quiet. And I've got disparaging readings with the wrist cuff type. It's like the difference between having a flip phone and a smartphone.
Yeah, interesting. Really good point. Thank you, Dan. I from what I'm hearing, it's across the board. If you don't use the right blood pressure cuff, you're screwed. All right, let's go to Aaron, Dallas, Texas, KLIF. Quickly, go right ahead.
Hey, you were on a episode. We were talking about episodes of cheaters, and my son and I will never forget the episode where the guys came out with a weed eater and started attacking the cameraman and everybody with a weed eater.
Coming at him with a weed whacker. Get out of here. Yeah, look, I've seen a lot of those get violent, and it's always very, very crazy. It's always that's what I liked about it. It was like really good reality TV. You could tell it wasn't scripted. It was a really interesting take on things. Thank you, Aaron. Big shout out to everybody in Dallas, Texas, KLIF. Let's keep it moving. Let's go to Jane, Saratoga, New York, WGDJ, New York in the building. Jane, go right ahead quickly.
Hey, Rich. Okay, quickly. All right, I'm Sicilian, just to get that straight.
Forget about it.
Yeah, that's important. My first husband was chosen for me. So we got married. I was not happy. I had a little girl. She was very, very tiny. My husband worked in Chicago with some people that my brother knew. And he said, you're going to have a tubal. And if you don't have a tubal ligation, then that's it. I'm walking out. So being young and silly, I went in to get the surgery. I was laying in the hospital one night, and I got a call from my husband. He says, I'm not going to be there to see you. I'm so sorry. I'm on a street corner right now with my secretary, so don't expect me to come and see you. How did your tubal go? And so I started to cry, and I called my brother, told him what was happening, and my ex was on his way to the motel, and I guess I don't know what happened, but he never came home.
Huh.
So
I guess he bumped into your brother.
I think he might have, yes. So poetic justice.
Nothing like the good old days, right? I mean, really, that's how things. I guess if I say that's how they ought to be, somebody will get upset with me. But sometimes you got to take care of your family, right? That's just how things work. And it's important to let people know, hey, listen, Jane comes with a family, right? You don't just marry Jane, you marry all of us. And sometimes that's what marriage looks like when it goes awry. Great story, Jane. Thank you so much for your call. Excellent hour. Great program tonight because of you guys, the guests and the listeners. Anybody on hold? I thought we had Kim on hold and Daryl on hold. Forgive me. We'll get to you tomorrow if you're able to call back in. I'm looking forward to it. Until then, hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night and God bless. I am Rich Valdez, and we're going to do it all again tomorrow, God willing. Until then, listen to this station. Hasta mañana.